When was the last time you were frustrated with someone at work or at home and felt either as a hero, I'm always coming to the rescue, or as a victim? Why is this happening to me again? Today, we're going to talk about above the line and below the line and how we use it to inform ourselves to get out of that victim, hero, villain triangle and move into more positive ways of approaching leadership and daily life. And there's no shame with feeling these ways. It's a very natural response. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it today. Welcome to The Rooted Leader. Hi, I'm Kathleen Wise-Mandel. I'm a scientist, leader for over 20 years, and now a leadership coach. I created the short leadership minisodes that meet busy leaders where they are, offering insight, reflection, and questions that support growth in the flow of your work. You can think of it as your own mini personal coaching session. Thank you for being here. Above the line, below the line is an idea that was coined by many researchers and one that I became more familiar with through Brené Brown in her book, Strong Ground: The Lessons of Daring Leadership, the Tenacity of Paradox, and the Wisdom of the Human Spirit. I was fortunate to participate in a coaching community book club on this book, and I can tell you it is packed full of amazing lessons Brené Brown usually provides us. It does build off of the Dare to Lead concepts, and she offers insights from many amazing organizational psychologists and other authors. Brené takes a few different models and puts them together in a beautiful visual that I will include in the show notes. It takes the above the line and below the line aspects of conscious leadership concepts and adds the drama triangle and the empowerment dynamic. Below the line thinking keeps us closed, it keeps us defensive, and it keeps us committed to being right. It can be a real blocker for us to move forward. Oftentimes we aren't even aware we're in this space. It can happen in work or life. But what we want to do is understand when we're in that below the line automatic thinking and allow ourselves to move to a more above the line thinking. It's curious and it's committed to learning. It's much more generative. Below the line thinking is defensive, and actually it's a response to a perceived threat. Our initial response is to go into flight, fight, freeze, or fawn almost automatically and typically subconsciously. It's referred to as an amygdala hijack, which is a really intense emotional reaction that's not necessarily appropriate for the situation. And it's basically due to our brain that's wired to take over if we are experiencing a threat. It's usually followed by emotional signals, including anger, fear, anxiety, or panic. And it causes us to respond without thinking, and usually that response is not a good one. The key is to recognize when we're below the line, and sometimes that's hard to do. We can get caught up before we even acknowledge that's where we are. In her book, Brené Brown mentions how she knows when she's below the line, and she knows it from recognizing an emotion. I started thinking about that as well. When I start feeling frustrated or slightly angry, I'm starting to pause right away and say, okay, what's going on? What is leading me to feel this way? And right away, I'm thinking to myself, am I playing victim or am I trying to rescue someone? And it really brings me clarity much more quickly than if I sat there and stewed in that emotion for a while. It's a great tool for me to remind myself when I'm jumping into the rescuer role as a parent to adult children. It's a role they don't really want anymore or need, and it's a way for me to recognize more quickly when I'm in this mode and when I need to shift to just be there for coaching when they ask, or when they need it, or when they want it. So if this resonates with you as a parent, a step-parent, a caregiver, a friend, hey, just raise your hand a little. No one will know, but I will feel your solidarity and I will feel so much better. Brené Brown reminds us of the drama triangle as a tool for identifying when we are below the line. And it consists of a triad of being either a hero, a victim, or identifying a villain in this particular situation. It's when we are thinking about defensiveness and blame. I want to stop you just for a moment to let you know everyone feels this. Everyone goes into this reactivity over a stimulus that puts us below the line. So don't think that there's something wrong with you. The idea here is for us to recognize it faster. It won't mean that you'll stop doing it. You'll just recognize it faster and be able to adjust more quickly. We want to take a few breaths, take a pause, get some oxygen to our brain and away from the muscles, which are normally used to run away or fight, and think about what our options are. It's times like these that Daniel Goleman's 5 emotional intelligence competencies come into play: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. And when we allow ourselves to pause, we have better access to those things. We're hoping to train ourselves, once we sense that emotional response, is to ask, what am I sensing? What might be happening for me? And to do that quicker than you've done before. Once I realize why I may be in this mode, I need to name it. And naming it allows me to take a small action. What do I need to do to shift myself into being more curious, to learn, and maybe gather information? For some recent coaching clients, the topic of below the line thinking was showing up in a different way. It was showing up as overwhelm and lack of control in applying for jobs in a very busy job market. It makes you feel stuck and that you don't have control of next steps. Once we realize we have an opportunity to reflect and pause and understand, instead of doing the same activity, how might we move into thinking differently about the job search, about the approach, and about the path ahead rather than staying stuck. The above the line thinking is moving into a learning mindset of either challenging in a positive way, asking questions, being curious, or actually moving into action by creating. It leads to reflection, curiosity, and learning. Recently, I was leading a group coaching session, and one of the emerging leaders mentioned that they wanted to envision themselves as a calm and intentional leader as they continue to develop. I thought it was a great example of above the line thinking. This leader was being very intentional about learning, understanding, and reflecting about what being intentional looks like for her as a leader. She wasn't reacting to a situation, and she could take that time to create that vision for herself. The exact opposite of the drama triangle is the empowerment dynamic triangle. Our victim now becomes a creator. Our persecutor moves into a challenger role, and the hero or the rescuer turns into coach. Helps us to create empowering action, moving us above the line. It allows us to have trust in the discovery process, a belief in learning and growth, and of challenging an idea versus the person. While watching the latest episode of Shrinking on Apple TV, Harrison Ford's character, a therapist, is talking to his client about someone who's a catalyst for change in his life. The idea of reframing that discomfort to acknowledge where we are and see it as a lever for change and moving towards action, learning, and growth really resonated with me. Moving above the line is a choice. Staying below the line is also a choice. Brene mentions that this could be language you share with not only a team, maybe a family member. Hey, I need to go below the line for a minute. I know I'm there. I just want to get it off my chest. And then I'd like for us to move above the line and create a solution or some thoughts on moving forward. And let's be honest, if it's your family, they're going to roll their eyes. But I think once they see the possibilities with using this language, it can really diffuse a lot of difficult situations. So 3 takeaways. When you are feeling an emotional response, typically negative, Stop and gain self-awareness on where you are within that drama triangle. Once you notice that pattern based on your emotions, you'll start to recognize it more quickly and you'll be able to pause and reflect rather than react. 2. Once you notice where you are in the drama triangle, how can you shift how to show up in the empowerment dynamic triangle? Which role do you need to play in order to become above the line, creating an environment and situation for learning, building trust, and taking action? 3, we have a choice to stay below the line in negativity and non-action. It's about changing our mindset from reacting to circumstances to taking responsibility and empowering steps towards actions and choice. Reflection questions. You could think of this time as your mini personal coaching session, and if you're able to, please pause between the questions. You can answer aloud in your car, or you can take time to journal your responses. When was the last time you identified as a victim, a hero, or identified someone as a villain in a work or personal setting? What was the issue at hand? What story were you telling yourself about what was going on? What role did you have in that particular situation? Are you responsible for the situation, or were you a stakeholder? What emotion was present? How might others have experienced that situation? Were you able to move toward above the line thinking? And if so, what shifted for you? Now think of a time you were in an above the line situation where you were generative, you were creating, you were coaching or helping someone. What was the issue at hand? What role did you have in this situation? What emotion may have been present? How might others have experienced you in this situation? My hope here is that you realize that below the line thinking is natural. We all do it. The hope is that once we identify it, we're stopping that vicious cycle to create a more virtuous cycle of positive thinking and possibilities by working with others towards learning, collaboration, and creation. Give yourself compassion as you're learning. Acknowledge the fact that you're listening to learn how to be a more aware leader and person. And I thank you. You've got this. Thank you for joining the Rooted Leader podcast. And if today's minisode sparked something for you, take a moment to reflect on the questions in the show notes. You'll find links and resources there as well. If you'd like to share a thought or a question for a future episode, you can email me at therootedleaderpodcast@gmail.com or reply directly on the Rooted Leader Substack. Please be sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Until next time, stay rooted in authenticity and empathy. Thank you.